There we are, the lights on. Good evening. The Planning Policy Commission meeting for Thursday, June 12th will come to order at 6:35. First item of business is approval of the minutes for May 22nd. Are there any additions or corrections for members of the commission? Seeing none?
Yeah,
Remote?
I have one. I think
Okay.
on page 4, on the very top, it says Weller asked. I think that was Justin. I think that was you.
Yeah, looking at that, I think that's correct. So Weller should be changed to Walsh, I believe, on that page.
And I could be wrong on this, but I also think on page 6, the fourth paragraph. That's why I didn't sit by him this time, because I figured Weller, Walsh.
Rated you tonight. We're kidding.
So page 4, what was your name?
Page 6, fourth paragraph up from the bottom.
Is your mic on, Paul?
I was trying to press it, but I don't know.
Is the red light on?
Oh, okay, it is now.
There it is. Now he's happy.
How about the top of page 7?
That was me.
Okay. All right. Any other corrections?
I also have one addition that I'm not seeing in the minutes, and I'm not sure at what point we talked about this, but during the utilities discussion, I specifically remember asking about the possibility of inclusion of fiber optic expansion, and I didn't see that within the minutes.
Okay.
Okay. Susan's got that.
Anything else? If none, noting the changes, is there a motion to accept the minutes?
Second.
Offered and second, all in favor? Opposed?
Nice.
Minutes are approved.
Excellent.
Move on. The next item of business is the transportation element update.
Yes.
Kristen, the floor is yours.
Excellent, because I love having the floor. So for those of you who I haven't met yet, I'm Kristen Leeson. I'm a senior planner with Development Services, and I've worked with Trish for about 11 years or so.
Only 11?
So tonight I know, only 11. Tonight we're talking about two different elements. We're talking about the transportation element, and we're going to do what we did last time and talk about the goals. We're just going to focus on the goals, and then we'll move into the land use element and talk about the changes that were made to the goals, just briefly, that we covered those, and then start discussing policies. So moving right into it. First thing I'd really like to talk to, and it's part of the element, is one of the City Council's 2015 goals. One of their goals is to establish a they called it a transportation mobility plan. We're changing it to, or transportation master plan. We're trying to change that to a mobility master plan. I think so. Let me scoot this cute well. Yeah. So what they would like the transportation master plan to be is a comprehensive multimodal approach to transportation to identify near and long-term projects and funding mechanisms for those. They would like to incorporate several existing plans that we have, including complete streets, ped and bike policies and plans, and then we're also currently working on transportation concurrency, and they would like that to be incorporated into it. They suggested that the development of the master plan can be started with the transportation element, and one of the examples that they suggested that we look at is the Redmond Transportation Master Plan. So some of the contents in the Redmond plan, as well as a few others, there are trends and conditions, performance measurements, multimodal transportation system plans, motorized, non-motorized, transit. They include freight access and distribution, parking plans, and transportation demand management, regional transportation, maintenance and operation plans and programs, and 3-year priority action plans, design guidance. One other thing, another goal that the city council had was to do a circulation plan. It was a proposed goal to do a circulation plan for Old Town. And what they decided to do is combine that in with the mobility master plan. So that is an additional piece to this. So we're already working on a lot of this. In 2014, we're working on the mobility action plan. And that includes priority projects. There are 13 on there. They are prioritized. There were about 80 in total that we're looking at. We priced out the first 13, and those will be included, as well as the others, into the maps that we have, the non-motorized maps. We also identified recommendations for policy changes, program changes, and standards changes. We're also currently working on updating concurrency. And this includes updating our models, which we use. We use land use assumptions to figure out how traffic's going to work over the next 20 years and see what improvements need to be made. We're updating the transportation impact fee. We're trying to simplify concurrency and impact fees. We're coming up with a new non-motorized transportation mitigation fee that came out of the Central Issaquah plan. And looking at funding strategies. How are we going to pay for all these things? That's part of what we're doing right now as well. 2015, June of 2015, is when the transportation element will be finished. And that includes all of the 20-year, the street system, transit system, pedestrian system, and bicycle system plans or maps that we have that show all of the routes that we want to be built in 20 years. It includes the Transportation Improvement Program, which is our long-range plan, project descriptions, 3-year priority action plan, concurrency management and level of service policies, and a street functional classification system. Most of that is in there now, and we're just updating. And when I say just updating, it's kind of a big deal, but we're updating those existing things. 2017, we will turn that into a standalone master mobility plan, and we'll add trends and conditions, performance measurements, and some of freight distribution. We'll update our TDM plan and include a maintenance and operations plan, regional transportation as well. And then in 2019, we'll do on the citywide parking plan, Old Town circulation plan, design guidelines, and by that time, it will be time to update the concurrency model again. So just to kind of give you guys a snapshot of what needs to be done, what's going to be done over the next 4 years, but the transportation element is a huge piece of that. So when we start updating the policies, we have a schedule for it, but I think the schedule is going to change a little bit for when this comes back to PPC. We can't really do the concurrency policies and level of service policies until council has adopted those changes, and that won't be until fall. Actually, they won't adopt them until by the end of the year. We'll start working on them in fall. And then we can start incorporating some of the pedestrian, non-motorized bike policies now or in the next month or two, once that comes along. So that we're waiting on a few updates before we can move on this.
Question?
Yes.
So when you talk about concurrency, are you referring only to road concurrency or multimodal concurrency?
Multimodal
Okay.
concurrency.
Kristen,
Yes.
can you go back 2 slides?
Whoops, wrong way. This one?
Next one more. Can you explain the difference between what the Transportation Improvement Program 20-year is and what the TIP expanded project description is? Because I thought that's what TIP was 20-year plan.
You know, I thought about I should have taken the second one out. It's so when you all see Gary every time, he has the chart that lists out all of the projects and then includes the pricing. This is the other piece to that. He also has individual sheets that describe each one.
Right.
And that's all it is. It's
Okay.
broken out into 2 different sections here. It's all one. Yeah.
I wanted to know if it was expanded beyond 20 years or something, if we were talking
Goodness,
about it.
no.
It's just expanded in that 3-year plan. Basically, 3 years after expanded detail.
Okay.
Right.
I just wanted to make sure that's what it was.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have another question too, just to make sure how this all fits together. So we're working on the transportation element of the plan, and all these things are going on kind of concurrently. So we need to make sure they fit together is what
Correct.
you're saying, right?
Correct.
So the mobility master plan, we have to basically say in here that that's what we're going to do next, right? And so line that up, and I guess those are the kind of things I'm,
Right. There's a section in here called mobility management, and I would imagine that a policy in there would be develop a mobility master plan
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, so those kinds of things that aren't quite here yet as you bring some of these other
Right.
things to light.
And then we take the transportation element out of it, include it in the master, or the mobility master plan, plus all those other pieces.
Because you got a thing laid out for 4 years that isn't quite set up as, to be done yet.
Right, which is why our schedule may not work, that we already have out there.
And then, so some of the details, you say you're not coming till the fall for some of these things you're gonna want, so that's the more detail that will fall under what we're talking about tonight.
Correct, correct. Yeah, a lot of it I can't even address right now. It's just, there's too much flying around for me to keep up. All right. So the transportation element, we're going to do what we did last time and just talk about the goals. So just as a reminder, a goal is your aim or desired result. The policy is what guides you to achieve those goals, and implementation is the execution of those policies, the actual doing. Okay, so tonight it's the big picture aim. So why it's important, one, it's a huge piece of the mobility master plan. Two, transportation patterns affect land use patterns as much as land use, as, it's vice versa. They affect each other equally. And transportation seems to be the number one issue that residents and businesses would like to see addressed in the city. So it's a pretty big topic. So the vision currently is to provide a comprehensive, well-managed, active transportation system that enables the safe and efficient movement of all users, contributes to the public realm through well-designed and inviting facilities, and provides a variety of facilities that accommodate the multiple functions that occur, such as connectivity, recreation, passive use, informal gathering, and stormwater. Yes?
I'm unclear what about stormwater? Stormwater what?
Just that
Stormwater,
that it
retention?
infiltrates, that it doesn't flood,
Okay.
that it's infiltrated back into the ground.
Because I feel like that sentence kind of,
Sticks out there.
well, no, it's just like, and stormwater.
Oh, okay.
I was thinking, okay, well, the removal, the storage of it, the treat, what about it are we trying to address?
Okay. So
in-
expand a bit. Stormwater
Or even
infiltration.
Yeah, anything. I
Okay.
was just like, oh, did a word get dropped off?
Okay.
Right, because we don't want to say we're transporting the stormwater.
Yeah, I just wasn't
Is-
quite
is the way
sure
it kinda
what
reads
we
there.
were supposed
Right.
to do with it now that we have it. We have storm.
Okay.
So are we
And-
trying to say minimizing of impervious surface, maybe? Is that what we're getting at?
Not necessarily, because if you want non-motorized facilities and bike lanes or cycle tracks, your roads aren't going to get any skinnier. So not really, you just want to be sure that when you're building all of this, that you're not creating more problems. Correct. Anything else?
One more question on a paragraph. In the second line, it talks about movement of all users.
Yes.
I don't know, users just felt weird to me. Citizens is people. Users are kind of like a, I don't know, pay for you use kind of thing, I guess.
Okay.
I think too, back, Chantal, to your thought, is to make sure that some of the way we do, the green, the stormwater kinds of, the, not ditches, but the infiltration systems that look green and landscaped, but really they're, like on Rainier.
Right.
To make sure that those are what we think of when we put in a new road or we repair a road, that it doesn't have to be just ditches and culverts, that it could actually be that nice green infiltrating, but that looks like it's the landscape.
So, what does active means as opposed, I mean, I assume I know what it means, but first, why is it capitalized? Two, there's active transportation, there's passive transportation.
It's active, it's capitalized because it's defined.
Okay,
That's the only reason for that.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't know what it means, so we defined it.
right, okay. So I didn't see the definition.
It's pulled straight from Central Issaquah, and trying to be consistent, we use the same term. But is it the active?
Well, to me, it implies not necessarily, you think of passive like passive recreation versus active recreation.
Okay.
If you apply it to transportation, you think of, more motorized as opposed to walking, for
So
example.
sitting in your car, pedaling your
Right.
bike. Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know if it has a definition that goes beyond that, it's fine, but otherwise I would prefer to not have the word active as part of it.
Okay. We can look at that. The only concern is consistency. That's one of the goals that we're trying to achieve, is to make sure that the comprehensive plan is consistent with the Central Issaquah plan. So,
Right, and there's a whole
And
section
that's
in
the
Central.
definition right there, is it not, in parentheses?
There it is.
It is right there.
Yeah.
And that's out of the Central Issaquah plan, because it talks about mass transit, which is really outdated term.
Right.
But because we have to be consistent, we can't change that,
right.
mass transit.
I have one more thing, I guess back to the stormwater thing, sorry. Because I know that, I don't know the soils in Issaquah that well, and I don't know if there's infiltration available in Issaquah.
Yes.
So I know sometimes it shouldn't be infiltrated, and sometimes it should be distributed to where it should be going.
Did your mic go turn off?
Yeah, there it is, I think. So anyways, I don't know if we should say it accommodate stormwater rather than just, it's just my thought.
Right.
Sometimes we shouldn't accommodate it, sometimes we should.
Right.
So,
And I think putting it up there, we just want to be sure we're always thinking about it, because you're
Yeah.
right, some places are really good for infiltration and some places not.
Yeah.
So we just don't want to forget that roadways and,
Okay.
and transportation pieces are often also our stormwater facilities, whether they're pipes or infiltration.
Got it, okay.
and
Kinda
we could
takes in the whole
also,
thing.
we could also say, and appropriate stormwater infiltration, but that is looked at every single time any
Right,
project
yeah.
comes in.
Right.
Whether it can or not, okay.
Okay.
And one thing that I'm not seeing within the transportation vision, comprehensive, well-managed, efficient, but could we work in environmentally responsible as kind of an overarching goal of the transportation system? I think that would go a long way to making sure that that's addressed in each of the goals.
Are we all okay with it, baby? It didn't come out very well. Is everybody okay with that
Yeah.
addition? Okay.
Some language I was going to suggest was something like that maximizes or maximizes energy efficiency. Because it says efficient, but it says efficient movement. So we have the other version of efficient. Maximizes energy efficiency and minimizes disruption to the environment.
Okay. So I would be adding environmentally responsible, maximizes energy efficiency, and minimizes, I can't read my word.
Destruction of
Disruption, thank you. It looks like it starts with an A. Disruption to the environment. Okay. Ready? Okay. I don't want to go through each and every one of these. But these are GMA requirements. So GMA, as you all know, requires certain pieces be addressed in your comprehensive plans. And essentially, they're saying, make sure that you use land assumptions to determine what your travel is going to be like and how people are going to travel over the next 20 years. Make sure that you have a funding strategy to pay for all of this. Make sure that you don't let development happen unless things are mitigated or other things are changed, such as the level of service is decreased. Make sure that you have 20-year plans in place. Again, with funding, make sure that you coordinate with other agencies. Use transportation demand management strategies to try and get people out of single occupancy vehicles. And you make sure that you are concurrent. So that really quickly summarizes all those policies. We can't change them, but I just wanted to go over those with you. Okay. First, category. So like we did with land use, this is broken up into different categories. First category is transportation and land use, and it addresses land use assumptions, growth targets, transportation improvement program, and concurrency. The first goal is coordinate land use and transportation. So like GMA said, make sure that you don't let development happen unless the traffic impacts are mitigated or unless the level of service is changed. Essentially, there are other things, but that's what it's saying. Any question?
Would that be maybe better addressed by coordinating with land use with transportation as opposed, so it doesn't seem like we're just addressing both goals separately, but we're actually coordinating the two
Okay.
goals?
Do I hear any nays? Okay.
You're okay. 6:30, but that's okay.
It's very fashionable.
Do you need a chair? We're gonna.
Okay. Number 2,
Is that, okay, one of the rolly ones would work.
you can get it up there. Oh, wait.
We're gonna get a bigger podium, yeah.
Okay. Unless there are any other comments on the first one. Number 2 is link development and transportation improvements by tying transportation cost estimates and potential funding to job and population growth rates. Are we good? Okay. 3. And actually moving on to a different section as well. This is transportation demand management, which is trying to get people out of single occupancy vehicles. So we work with different companies, large companies, when they come in to come up with plans for carpooling or bike share or private small vehicles that people can use if they take transit. That's what this includes. Use transportation demand management techniques to achieve efficient use of transportation infrastructure, increase the person carrying capacity, accommodate and facilitate future growth, and achieve Issaquah's land use objectives.
I did have a question with regard to the wording of increase the person carrying capacity. Is that of the rights of way or of the individual vehicles?
Individual vehicles, I believe. I would have to check, but I believe that's individual vehicles, since that's the point of this whole section.
Right, like a van pool
Right.
or a carpool or a, something like that.
Okay.
A shuttle, yeah.
A shuttle, yeah.
Anything else? Okay. Number 4, support alternative modes of transportation that help to reduce dependency on single occupancy vehicles.
I would support something a little, well, instead of support as a word. What about offer travel choices? It's more active.
Okay? I'm just thinking goal versus policy. That's what I'm doing.
That implies
But-
that the city is going to offer that
Mhm.
service.
Right.
What is intended here?
This is a bigger picture. So that could be a policy that says,
Well, that would be very specific as a.
it would be, it would be.
But I'm looking at it as a broader,
Okay.
in the broader context of,
So the support, I just want to understand, doesn't seem strong enough or actionable enough?
yeah,
Okay. So how about if I look for a more actionable word?
Okay.
That keeps it a goal? Okay.
And along those same lines, the transportation demand management is also aimed at reducing carbon emissions. But while it addresses single occupancy vehicle use, I would be in favor of a goal added just below that to support the use of alternative energy vehicles or low emission, zero emission vehicles.
Okay.
as part of the plan as well, and I think that would go a long way to a reduction of emissions as well.
So goal number 6 says prioritize non-motorized and transit-oriented mobility improvements and design elements because of their climate reduction benefits. Does that cover what you'd like to see? Or, Not
Not
quite.
necessarily.
Okay.
Because these are still motorized vehicles and they're not transit-oriented, and it doesn't really go to the overall demand management design. And so that's where I think a separate goal, or even modifying the goal related to alternative modes of transportation would address that.
okay, for the fun of it, could you repeat your first one for me, please? And then
What was that?
good, for the fun of it, could you repeat your first phrasing for me?
Oh, support,
It was
yeah.
alternative modes?
Alternative fuel
Okay,
vehicles, including low-emission and zero-emission vehicles.
Could we just add that to that,
And
that
that's-
goal? Lower, increase the person carrying capacity, lower emissions, accommodate, and,
Yeah, it could either be added to goal 3 or goal 4. I think it could fit into either one of those with just a rewording.
okay. All right. So, goal 5?
I actually
Oh,
have
sorry.
something to go back to on goal 4. Instead of support alternative modes, like what Chantel was saying, what about encourage? Is that a more
Actionable?
actionable, but still it doesn't like put the city out there for like committing to
yeah,
providing the alternative modes?
yeah, encourage, I mean, unless you would say provide incentives for,
Yeah.
or something like that. I don't see that as much more actionable
really do
than,
anything.
than support.
Okay. Yes,
I apologize for being late, first of all,
that's all right.
first time in my life. Would it be appropriate to put something in here about fueling stations for electric cars?
That was my question.
I was thinking about that, so I was.
No, I was going to ask, I was waiting for the next goal, the managed parking through plans. And is that in the parking plans to put in charging stations for the electric vehicles?
That's 2019. I don't know. No, I don't know yet.
2019 is too far.
It is. So I'm not there yet. It's, yeah, and it would be a good policy when I'm
And that's
thinking.
my concern as well, is that it seems like it would be more a policy to encourage energy-efficient vehicles as opposed to an overarching goal to it.
Well, how can you encourage electric vehicles if you don't provide the plug-ins?
Well, exactly, that's one of
Yeah.
the policies that would encourage electric vehicles, and I think would be necessary for encouraging electric vehicles, but I do feel that it's a policy.
Policy?
So I have a proposal. How about if we could add a section called Transportation and the Environment and put the climate-related goals under there, and under there list policies to provide or ensure developers provide electric stations, charging stations, incentivize fuel, alternative fuel cars, that kind of thing. Does that work?
So you'd put
Then
the
it just gets.
emissions under there, under
Right.
that one too?
Right, then it seems that, and it was included in the goal as well, so it just seems that there needs to be a bigger focus on it based on this discussion, and to get a bigger focus, you're going to have a whole section that's devoted to that.
I do like the idea of separating something, having sections for each of the, there's a climate control one, but sections for each of the modes of transportation, so we can have some specific policies that relate to each one of them, as opposed to having a lot of them put together under alternative or support this or support that. But what are we doing for walkability? What are we doing for bicycles? What are we doing for alternative energy vehicles, transit or whatnot?
Right, so they are broken into sections. The goals are currently broken into sections like that, but I would just propose adding one that specifically towards climate or the environment. Or,
I would be in favor of that, for
does
sure.
that work? So I'll go back and, yes,
I would like to point out that the city's already, or the developer's already doing that up in the Highlands. There's a whole strip of electric plug-ins, whatever you'd like to call them, what they're called. So I don't know if they're incentivized to do that, or it's just the city said you shall do this.
Right, we had a program where we had, because we have one at the City Hall over by the Holiday Inn as well. So there's a few sprinkled around.
Yeah.
Not enough, though.
okay.
So, Kristen, can you point where those sections are that you said?
So at the top of each page, so you have, I don't have a pointer. That one says Transportation Demand Management, that's a section. Active Transportation Network, that's a section.
Yeah,
Street Network, non-motorized network.
right. I was talking about specifically doing walkability, specifically bicycles, specifically, so those would be a section.
So you don't want non-motorized, do you want those to encompass both of those?
That
You want
was
them to
a
be separate?
suggestion too. And maybe that can go under non-motorized, but
Okay,
let's see how it goes.
okay. Okay,
I'm going to stop you from going on. I'm not sure where this fits, but I guess it's a thing I'm concerned with from the bikes. We talk about encouraging bicycles and all that kind of stuff. And the new engineering that I'm seeing is is actually contrary to safety on bicyclists. If you go up on the Highlands, you do not want to ride up there, because the lanes are so narrow, the cars don't fit, and you're going to get blown off the road. And so this new engineering of narrowing everything down so the cars can't move very fast, and the driveways that aren't wide enough, and the one lane for a two-lane road, it puts the bicycles in serious jeopardy. So it's really hard. This is kind of an overarching thing that we're saying we're going to encourage bicycles, and we're going to engineer everything to make it unsafe for the bicyclists. And I'm not sure where that fits, but that's the new style of engineering, not just in Issaquah, but other places as well. But it's gotten, it's to me, it's really very ridiculous. And in Issaquah, I ride my bike all over, and I don't ride certain places because it throws you into the middle of traffic, no matter what you want to do.
right.
So I'm not sure how that fits in here, but somehow I'd like to see that issue of safety of those addressed in the engineering standards. Other places, I mean, just a simple thing, bulb curbs, water thing, they throw the bicyclist all of a sudden totally into traffic when they can be on the edge of traffic. So,
And that's been addressed in the Mobility Action Plan
Yeah,
that we're working on right now.
Something about a
And-
protected lane when you can
I
have,
can see
when
bicycles
applicable.
as an alternative mode of transportation to transportation centers, but as I view it, bicycles and walking trails, pedestrian walks are more recreation than alternative. People who, the way to get cars off the road is to try to figure out some way to get people not to use cars to shop. And I'll address that later, because I had a proposal that I made some years ago that might address that issue. But we talk about bicycles as an alternative mode of transportation. I think we have to be careful, because to go from one place to another is to go with a purpose. And bicycles, unless you're running an errand or going to a transportation center, just don't cut it.
I would
just have to
respectfully,
disagree.
yeah, I would do.
Because I'm on my bike around town all day long, and I cover this ground, and I use it as a transportation mode, not as a recreation mode.
And I would
You're
disagree
the
as
exception.
No, not anymore.
I also commute to Queen Anne from Issaquah by bike, and I've noticed some of those same issues with certain roadways along my bike route that create hazards. So I have been involved with that as well.
And this is why I was suggesting to have a bicycle section where we can list policies that are specific to riding bicycles, and a pedestrian section that is specific to that, which seems to fit maybe under non-motorized, but is not directly there right now. So.
I think the critical issue that we need to talk about is how to get cars off the streets, because that's what we're facing right now without population growth. So the issue becomes, how do we deal with the issue of increasing population from 30 to 60,000 and not exacerbating the traffic jams we currently have.
And I don't disagree with you. I think those can be integrated, a solution that both works for increasing, or reducing the amount of cars on the roadway, increasing alternative transportation options, which would get cars off the roadway, as well as making sure we're looking for opportunities to integrate those two.
One of the ways would be to find ways to encourage car sharing, transportation sharing, which have worked in other cities very well, in other counties, but the issue is how and what incentives can we provide to make that happen.
And Costco right now has the largest van pool in the state. And we do have policies in place that require businesses with 100 people or more that come in to do that. But you're right, and those are good policies that we need to make sure that we have right when we get to those, so that we can make that happen.
So on that note, looking down just one goal ahead, the parking, managing parking through plans and programs. I know zoning codes typically require parking for certain, land uses. And so I know that the lowest emission car would be no car, right? So if you're requiring cars or parking in your developments, then you're basically encouraging cars. So I'm just kind of wondering, maybe, I don't know how you would word this, maybe just manage parking plans. If we have a goal of, in the parking plan, to allow a developer to build a building without providing parking, and if he had some idea, or he or she had an idea of, okay, we're going to market this development with no parking, I don't know, provide something in there to allow someone to do that.
So I feel like I'm going deeper into this than I should, but we talked about that when we did the Central Issaquah plan. And developers said no. But another factor is what financiers will and will not finance, what banks will and will not finance. And a lot of times they won't finance a building if it doesn't have parking currently. However, in Central Issaquah, we gave both minimum and maximum parking requirements. So, which we've never had maximum requirements before, and we reduced the minimum down quite a bit in Central Issaquah. And that could change as we turn from more of a suburban community into a more urban community in Central Issaquah. But then you have to remember, too, that the comprehensive plan covers all of Issaquah and not just Central Issaquah. So you will still have a very suburban element outside of that. But it's a very good point and something that's been talked about a lot. King County had a whole 6-week program on it.
Right. I just don't know if we need to make a comprehensive plan based on what could be financed. Right, someone could finance the whole thing themselves. Who knows what could possibly be done. And so I just feel like providing a minimum just seems kind of odd to me, because it's like, and it just doesn't.
Well, I think in assuming that at some point people aren't going to be, I think having a minimum is important, because I am not getting on my bike. I have an infant and I have a 5-year-old, and there is no way I'm going to the grocery store with that. So I know some people do, but we live in a city that is aspiring to be this, amazing place, but it's still suburban, and there are reasons why people choose to live in a suburban area. And I think that if you only focus on the alternative transportation modes, you're alienating quite a large population of Issaquah. We're not Seattle, where everything's close. And while some people do commute great distances, I worked for Los Angeles County for quite a few years, and the same argument came up a lot. What it comes down to, I think, is if you exclude too many things in the hopes of creating this ideal plan, you're ruling out sources of funding because you don't have a certain phrase included in your general plan, and then you're no longer eligible for certain tax benefits and certain things where the cities require that help from the government, and if you don't have that one word in your goal or in your plan, you just totally eliminated that source of funding, whatever the end goal would be. So if you're having minimum, if you're getting rid of minimum parking, you're getting rid of half of Issaquah.
I mean,
Mike?
I guess my intent wasn't to say like, no one's gonna provide parking. I guess my intent was, if someone had a great, fantastic idea, they're like, okay, do something.
You know, why would we limit them the option of that, you know?
So don't discourage it.
Right,
Don't.
it's just so, you know, if someone wanted to come in and do something and attract all these people that didn't want to own a car, they could do that, you know, and so maybe it wouldn't be a retail spot because no one's going to go there and shop at this retail place without a car.
Right.
You know, it's
And
just like,
Along
I
those
guess
lines.
in a plan that provided some type of option for that, you know?
Can I let Mike jump in here real quick? He's been trying to get in for a while. Thanks.
I think any plan or future goals, we have to live with the reality of what is current in our environment. You can you can hope, you can demand, you can pray that you're going to have cutbacks in certain areas where you're, you know, doing less cars, more bikes, et cetera, et cetera. But let's look at reality. Count the number of cars on the highway. We all drive cars. You may not because you ride your bike to work. That's fine. I don't. And I can tell you every morning that there's a whole bunch of people that are driving their cars all over the place. So, you know, eliminating parking or setting up an environment that is going to be that. I don't have a problem with having as a goal or an objective, but as a expectation ain't going to work, folks.
I mean, I don't ride my bike to work every day, and I'm not suggesting that. I'm just suggesting the idea of the possibility of someone to do that. You know, so I'm not saying you have to bike to work every day and you have to ride to a place that's you're not gonna be able to park in. So I'm just saying someone might have that idea, and why limit that person to that?
Right. And along, Paul, what you're saying is, we have it in our zoning code, our land use code, that if someone does come in with that kind of idea, like Z-Home, and they said the people that are going to live here are going to have such a sustainability mindset and lifestyle that we could have, we could have a lot fewer parking spaces because they're probably going to have the little smart cars, they're probably going to bike, and so we were able to reduce their parking because they could show us what their plan was, and our zoning code allows us to do that. So we already sort of have that umbrella of being innovative as long as the applicant can show that, like, the neighbors aren't going to be affected because all the people that can't find parking in their apartment or condos are going to park, you know, are going to impact the neighbors. So we want to be sure that those innovative ideas work within the whole neighborhood, not just with that parcel. But we do have some pieces in place to allow for that. And I think it's good to always be thinking of that next thing too, like you're talking about. Like, what if the next thing comes in and we can't do it because we've put ourselves in a corner? But so we're hoping that those kinds of things are in here, so when you get down to that actual application, that we'd be able to say, yes, you've shown us that you're putting all these things in places, so it's a good thing for those folks that live there and work there, but it doesn't affect the neighborhood in a bad way. So I think we're covered. I think what everybody's saying is good, and we have it covered.
Yeah, and, you know, I would agree with Mike. We're, you know, yes, we have to encourage reduction where we can, but that's where we have that second part of the goal, the quote, that supports Issaquah's land use objectives, end quote. We can't get rid of parking. It would be a detriment to businesses if we were to encourage people to build buildings directly without accounting for parking. I used to live on Capitol Hill, where there were tons of buildings being thrown up left and right without any parking, and now no one can find parking in Capitol Hill. You have people that are parking as squatters there. It discourages use of the business. People will just drive elsewhere if they don't have access. And so I think we have to be mindful of all the goals of Issaquah, not just the one policy, because this goal has to address all the policies.
So, yeah, so to that, I like this group. You all are so thoughtful.
May I make one last remark regarding parking? I hope it's the last remark. What about practical approaches to parking? I mean, has anybody driven around the parking lots in the Highlands? I don't know if they were purposefully designed to make it difficult to drive in those
Yes.
parking lots. You know, the planning areas, they come out so far and they're so narrow. And I know the developer's under pressure to put so many parking spots in for some code, what have you. And somewhere along the lines, I mean, the parking lot sizes, the sizes for the cars were reduced, but my car is still the same size, so they could get more parking spots in the place. But I don't know how we approach that. And then I am a recreational bicycle user, and I ride my bike around the top of the hill on the plateau and go to the QFC. And do we require a certain amount of bicycle parking spaces?
Yes, we do.
Doesn't seem like it's enough, though. So I don't know if that's appropriate to put in here somewhere as we're talking about bicycles. So just a thought, and thank you very much.
Just to follow up just on his comment about the uplands, size of parking, quickie. Number one complaint in the retail environment up there from what I've been able to see, and I've talked to at least 10, I think, because I was just kind of interested. Dick's Sporting Goods knows that area and up in there. Yeah, that is their number one complaint from customers, period. And they almost laugh about it when you walk in.
Okay.
So it could cause some real problems.
Okay. It's a standard, we're getting, but it's definitely worth discussing. Okay, are we on number 6? Are we on goal number 6? We're good to go?
4,
All right.
5.
Prioritize non-motorized and transit-oriented mobility improvements and design elements because of their climate reduction benefits. Now, we talked about this one a few minutes ago, kind of, and that we will have a transportation and environment section, so this will actually be there, not under transportation demand management, but comments regarding the goal.
Yeah. My only comment would be, it looks like goal 6 could be rolled up into goal 4 fairly easily, because those are the alternative modes of transportation, I think, that are addressed in, or some of the alternative transportation methods that would be encompassed by goal 4. So I don't know that it needs a separate goal. It seems that it would be encompassed within goal 4.
Okay.
So merge 4 and 6?
Merge 4 and 6,
Is that what I
yes.
heard?
Yes.
The alternative modes? Okay.
Anything else?
Jump right in, thank you. Does anybody else question the expression climate reduction? I'm not sure, is that,
Reducing the climate?
well, but climate what does that mean? Reducing the climate? I mean, I don't know.
That does look a
Turning
little funny,
Turning the
doesn't
thermostat down?
climate.
Seriously, on the temperature outside? What about
Climate
eliminating,
control?
substituting climate reduction with reduced carbon emissions?
I think it's carbon reduction, not climate
Yeah, it's carbon
reduction.
reduction.
Good catch.
I was just throwing that in there to see if you guys would catch it. All right.
I think it might be worth keeping separate. I'm not so sure we want to combine them. I guess that's what I was looking at
Okay.
when I said hold on, because you said combine them, but I'm not sure that's the best answer. I just, that's why I was going back and looking at it and trying to sort it out, because transportation demand management techniques to achieve all this, you know.
Oh, no,
that's
the
kinda-
next goal, right there.
Oh, okay, I was, okay.
I would
Yeah,
argue
alternative
that they
modes.
both have two different outcomes
Yeah, and
and different
non-motorized.
modes, yeah.
It feels like they're different to me. And
Different
one,
mode, yeah.
and one goal is to reduce single occupancy, the other one is,
That's right.
you know, so that's kind of a traffic goal. The other one's an environmental goal, so they're two different goals.
How about if I work on the two?
Oh, and actually,
Makes them more clearly separate and more clearly
one is
defined.
going to go with the climate ones anyway, though.
Right,
So that actually is going to move.
right. Number 6 is going with the climate ones. Environment ones. Okay. 7. Oh, active transportation. It's the active transportation network. So this addresses green streets, street design, maintenance, and public realm. And it's to, the first goal, the goal 7, ensure connections between all modes of transportation throughout the city. So that means make sure that your safe and efficient non-motorized bicycle routes connect up to the transit center. And from the transit center, you have a way to get that last mile. Or you're walking from the store to the park, and you want to make sure that there's a safe path there. So that's what that means by connecting all modes of transportation, that it's not just transit to cars or transit to stores. Once you get to that place, you have to have safe connections everywhere.
Yeah, my only comment on that goal would be to ensure and then add in and expand. So it kind
Okay.
of gives a maintenance with an expansion to increase the connections.
Okay?
I wrote down integration of instead of connection between.
Is that okay with people, integration of?
Yes.
I saw a maybe, maybe not.
Trish and I have had this discussion before. What do you do to get existing property owners to buy into the Central Issaquah plan? Apparently, you can't force people to sell. Eminent domain might be a tool in some respects, but it's
Political
Yes,
the one thing that I worry about when I look at the Central Issaquah plan is that it can only be implemented with the cooperation of existing property owners. And how do we incentivize existing property owners to buy into the central plan in terms of public gathering places and green streets and pedestrian walkways, closed-off traffic streets, and so forth? You can't do it without getting buy-in from existing property owners.
Right, and we told people during the process who were afraid that when the Central Issaquah plan was adopted, that all of a sudden they were going to have to make these changes. And we made sure, no, when you redevelop, you have to make these changes, but not if you're going to stay as you are.
Right, and there's a
So-
couple that are coming in, and we're hoping that, there'll be a domino effect, that once the first one goes in, then the neighbors go, wow, that's pretty neat, and then they'll come in, and, they all got a bump in zoning, so they're all worth more now. So if they choose to redevelop, their values are higher, but it's just a process of the market has to start churning, and then it takes off, but we're still kind of in that slow churn.
I think it's something we need to think about in terms of precipitating the process.
Right. One of the
This is why
council
I'm
goals
bringing
is
it up.
to figure out an anchor project, because the council would like to jumpstart it too, but I mean, the government can only do so much to try to get the free market to go, but the council's looking at other things too to get it to go faster.
Redmond adopted their downtown plan in the late 90s or early 2000s, and it's just now taken off. It's flying, but it takes a while
Right.
for these starter programs, catalyst projects, to get things going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You ready? Yes, Laura.
Okay. What did we change ensure connections to?
Integration of, integration
okay.
between.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. 8?
So is it ensure and expand integration between? Is that how it ended up?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to keep up.
Thank you for that. I forgot to go over it. Okay, number 8. Almost halfway there.
So are we looking at financial sustainability or?
This is still the active transportation network. What,
So when you talk about sustainability, is that the financial or?
where are you seeing sustainability?
Number 8, goal 8.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. No, sustainability, kind of, we're talking maintenance programs, so make
So
sure that what you
durability.
build, yes,
Yeah,
durability.
what's the other word? Resilience.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Okay, so ensure sustainability of the existing transportation infrastructure.
Yeah, and I would support some clarification of that as well, because I had the same question, because it sounds like it could be fiscal sustainability, it could be environmental sustainability of the network, of the active transportation network. So I think if reliability of the existing transportation infrastructure might be a better term, if that's really what we're aiming for.
I'll fly that by our Public Works Director, who told me to put sustainability in there. But I will, reliability.
You've got a short-term issue here because of the cuts in planned cuts in Metro bus service that will affect us as well as the whole greater Seattle area. And we're talking sustainability. We have to figure out some way to avoid these cuts for starters.
Too late for that.
All right, number 9. Enable and encourage creative public gathering spaces along transportation corridors. Yes.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
That comment out.
Your look was fine.
But next to creative, it's driving me crazy.
The
comma,
Yes.
Oh,
it's not, I'm sorry.
Kindred
you remind me of another former PPC member. Former PPC member. Okay.
I just, I'm the comma queen.
Parking lots?
Pardon me?
Are those called parking lots?
Public gathering spaces? They are.
Transportation board. That's the cops.
All right. I fixed the comma. Are we good? That's okay. All right. Street network. Establish an integrated street system to provide alternative routes and reduce congestion. So try and get more grid system in there as opposed to cul-de-sacs where you can, so that you have more routes. Yes, Brian?
What does that mean?
Yeah.
That means try and, so, you know, oftentimes developers will want to come in and put in a cul-de-sac, which keeps traffic off of that street, which is great for people who live there, but it puts it all on the street. Whereas if you have a grid system, there are more options for people to drive, so the roads aren't quite as congested.
So can we say that?
What I just said?
Yeah. We'll provide a grid system with a high level of interconnection that provides, I mean, the connection part of it, I think, is what it's the important part of it. To
Yeah,
provide alternative routes and reduce congestion.
It sounds like we don't
And
have it at all
connectivity.
yet, and
So-
established means you're starting from scratch.
How about improve a grid system? And
I'd prefer a connected street system rather than
Okay.
integrated.
It's just that the
Connected
word
is good.
integrated.
the other way, on the other policy, it went the other way
Right,
from
yeah.
connected to integrated. Okay, so connected,
Connect is good, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and maybe maintain and enhance a connected street system as opposed to established, because I agree that does sound like we're missing.
Okay, so maintain and enhance a connected street grid system to provide alternative routes and reduce congestion?
Yeah, I kind of have a question that goes with our street network. Issaquah has kind of become like a pass-through at certain times of the day. By making this a goal, are we encouraging more of that?
I think what it does is it gives local drivers more options. The pass-through traffic is probably going to take the same route anyway, they're going to I-90. But the local traffic has more options, so they get off of those more congested routes and onto the local streets.
Okay.
Does this mean signs like local residents only, or?
No, this
No.
is sort of like
No.
the undercrossing that's by
Yeah.
the undercrossing by the mail, by the
Yes.
post office. That was for local traffic, to get from side to side, so you didn't have to get on the freeway or try to go over the freeway with all the regional traffic.
Long time coming for
And
that.
so we're trying to think of more places where we can connect the grid system so that local folks can get around and have alternative ways to not have to go on SR 900 or Front Street. And so, so that locals kind of get a break when the regional folks, you know, are, I mean, the magnet is I-90 and we're never going to be able to stop that. But if we can figure out other ways for locals to get around, then I think it'll be happier
And-
for everybody.
And that was part of the purpose of the Old Town Circulation Plan, is to find a better grid system through there so that the local residents don't always have to go down Front Street with everybody else. So, okay.
What does this, what impact does this section have on housing developments who, the people that are looking for houses prefer a cul-de-sac for its traffic reduction? And does this apply to that?
It would be new development.
Yeah.
Unless you happen to have a cul-de-sac that already has a punch-through on the plat, which a lot of them do. If it's a vacant land next to it, they'll leave sort of a little stub, if you will, for the next subdivision to go in. And that would still happen that way. And hopefully when you bought there, you would know that it's really not a cul-de-sac forever, it's a stub to the next neighborhood when that is built. But I don't think we would go into existing neighborhoods and start blowing out their cul-de-sacs. It wouldn't be
No,
that.
I meant more in terms of for future development, because people who are looking for single-family homes in a suburban neighborhood, chances are a cul-de-sac would be something that they would want in terms of mitigating the traffic that's, people are cutting through to get to the other off-ramp for the freeway or whatever.
Right.
How does this goal affect those future developments in terms of allowing for cul-de-sacs? Does this eliminate the possibility?
It does
No.
not eliminate the
Oh, okay,
possibility. And it
okay.
can't eliminate the possibility, because if you get up on the hillsides, we still have East Cougar Mountain, which is one of our potential annexation areas, which will eventually someday develop. And they're just environmental constraints that you simply can't do grid systems in some of those places.
Right.
But, so we
And
can't
creeks
prohibit it.
and- right.
Okay,
But we would like to encourage the grid system where we can.
sure, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Ready? Okay, 11, non-motorized network. Incorporate non-motorized projects as an integral part of all roadway projects. So in other words, when you're designing a street, don't just design for cars, design for pedestrians and bicycles as well.
I think the difficulty with that is, again, if you're shopping the big box stores or if you're shopping the supermarkets, bicycles, it's pretty hard to carry your parcels in bicycles unless you've got an attachment to your bike. At one time, just thinking out of the box, if there was some way that we could incentivize the big box stores and the supermarkets to deliver at a token price or subsidized, that would keep an awful lot of cars off the streets. I live on Squawk Mountain, pretty far up, and bicycling, particularly at my age, is not an option. Even walking is not an option. It's great downhill, but you got to get back up, and that creates its own difficulties. So unless we can find some sort of a jitney system to service the mountains, it's going to be pretty hard to get cars off the streets and to develop alternatives to motorized transportation.
This isn't saying
But I think
design.
there are ways to do it. But I think the ways, again, are to incentivize stores and other places, apartment houses perhaps, to provide golf cart type transportation for local errands and things like that. These are ways to reduce motorized transportation, but we have to be thinking in those terms, I think.
And the ideas of having the apartments provide that, those are very good ideas for the alternative modes of transportation as well. And then, but I want to be clear that this one is not saying design roads only for non-motorized. It's saying design the non-motorized in addition to the streets that are there for cars and trucks.
I have one word answer to Ray, gondolas.
Don't what?
Gondolas.
Gondola.
So,
Still didn't get you, I'm sorry.
you know, those things that go up in gondolas.
Gondolas,
Gondolas,
like
it's
when
not-
you,
it's-
like in ski towns,
Um,
like a ski lift.
We need a
Yeah,
like-
ski lift.
Yeah, like a
squat
ski lift
gondola. Who's gonna develop
that go
that?
up and down. Yeah. So
Cities are
I've been
starting
talking
it, it's
about
not
those for a
unheard of.
long time in several.
Doesn't
commissions.
this basically refer to bike paths along new roadways? 'Cause
Yeah.
it says on roadway projects.
Yeah, it's in addition to the cars and.
So I would like to still bring up, and I mean, that's a very good goal, and that in no way takes away from having roads anywhere. And, you know, just encourages sidewalks and bike lanes and whatnot. But I still would like to see some wording about encouraging a connected bicycle network.
Okay.
And then we can add some policies regarding what kind of bicycle lanes and whatnot we would like to see in the city.
So a lot of this is being addressed in the mobility action plan, and so next time when we bring, I'm going to incorporate those policies and put all of our existing policies in there as well. So we'll go through that then too and see how that.
But you said that
pans
the mobility plan is going to be, this comes first, right?
out.
is the
No, the
chicken.
mobility plan does. It's almost done.
This is the egg or the chicken?
This is the chicken.
But
Well, I don't
what
know.
comes first?
So the mobility plan's almost done,
Okay,
and those policies are going to be incorporated in here.
okay.
Yes. Yes. Mike?
Is a existing example of this, because I think it comes to view when you think about this, the new road that we just talked about that went under I-90 by the post office, they also put in bike route and walking. That's a very busy location. A lot of people use it. Is that what we're talking
Yes,
about
it is.
doing, just as a visual recommendation?
Yes, it is.
Okay, that's what I thought.
That was the county project.
Was it? Okay.
But
Fair
so
was
East
their
Lakes,
first.
East Lakes and Mammoth Parkway, they're about to, there's a design to put in an extra southbound lane right before you get to I-90. And in addition to the southbound lane, they are also going to put in bike lanes and a sidewalk. So that's,
So I've got a question on some of these. I don't have the existing comp plan memorized here. So most of the stuff we have in here it's really carried over. I don't think a lot of it's very new. So the question comes up, if we have, these ideas were probably in the existing comp plan, so how did we not do these things previously? Like,
a lot of them are, but things have changed. Part of the reason for the mobility action plan is because council 2 years ago said, it's great, we've got policies and we've got maps in place, but it's not happening. So part of what the mobility action plan is to make those things happen, to find funding sources and come up with new programs or incentives to make those things happen.
So you just confused me because you talked about the mobility plan and then there's the
It's the
mobility
mobility
master
action.
plan that's coming after this, and now we have the master plans coming before this, so the wording's confusing.
Okay, yeah, that's my fault. Trying to get him to change the name of the mobility action plan too. So the mobility action plan is the non-motorized
That's a bike ped plan that they're working on
It's
right
a
now.
bike ped plan.
There you go. So
Yeah.
that's right.
So that may have been your confusion there too. I apologize.
Versus the.
There is currently there's a mobility action plan which is being written. It's actually the bike ped, non-motorized,
I still call it bike
Okay,
ped,
so
'cause it,
in my mind, mobility is everything that moves.
which is why I'm trying to get him to change the name.
Okay.
So.
But yeah, that was
Yes.
the confusion.
Right.
didn't
So and
understand.
you know what? It's
Okay.
so ingrained in me. I don't see a difference.
Okay.
But
Thank you
yes.
for asking the
So I'm glad you clarified that because I'm too deep into it.
Yeah, and so,
All right.
so I guess the question on some of these things, like, and I hate to bring it up, but the Highlands, and I don't think anybody is very happy with the engineering design up there at all for a whole lot of reasons. And that's the newest thing we've built, and that obviously got around any reasonable stuff that we're trying to put in here. So I guess the question is, how does that happen, that something, you know, variances that get allowed?
They are under different development regulations. All of the urban villages. So you have the Highlands and you have Talus and you have Raleigh, which is actually close to Central Issaquah. Lakeside
in Central Issaquah.
in Central Issaquah. Those are all actually under different development regulations. So, and we've had a chance to see what's worked and what hasn't worked. So we can make sure that what hasn't worked doesn't happen down here.
But to the
in the rest
point,
of the city.
the point though, the development agreements for the highlands, on the Urban Village Development Commission as well, the development agreements sounds fantastic. As I've said many times, I wish I lived there, and I do, but it doesn't look at all like what the development agreement said it would do. So the devil is in the details. It's not, you can build, you can have the greatest goals, you can even have good policies. It still doesn't mean that the implementation is going to be what you want it to be.
That's very true.
And I did have one comment. I think this might address Ray's point. Well, for one, I think we should change the first word from incorporate to integrate, just to kind of keep the wording consistent with the active transportation change we did. But regardless of that, I think the concern may be all roadway projects. If we're doing a repair to a road on Squawk, do we need to incorporate non-motorized project with that? In those instances, it may be overkill. So if we're just integrating it as part of an integral part of roadway projects, and not necessarily all roadway projects, then or maybe changing it to new roadway projects or major roadway projects. I don't know what
Major might work, because I'm just thinking of East Lake Sammamish Parkway, where they're getting ready to just redo part of it, but they're adding all this new stuff, non-motorized facilities.
So
But I
saying
see your point.
Are you saying that if we have a chance to build a sidewalk, we shouldn't build it? Because it's
Well,
Squawk Mountain?
if they're doing a road patch on a 20-foot section of, Ray's Street, is that something where we want to incorporate a sidewalk on every roadway repair that we do? Because roadway projects encompasses roadway builds, major renovations, and fixing a pothole. So, do we want to make it that all-inclusive? And that's my only concern there, is we may end up kind of spinning our wheels later on over meeting goals on very small roadway projects.
Okay. I'll work on that one.
Maybe it's the ones on the TIP, because a pothole wouldn't be on the TIP. But,
Yeah, but neither's a complete street project.
Talk about potholes.
So, yeah. I'll talk to Sheldon and see if he has any ideas too. Yes.
Me? Thank you.
Yes.
I was going to suggest, instead of projects, put networks, because I don't know what a non-motorized project is.
How about facilities?
Something other than projects, because it just,
Okay,
so non-motorized facilities?
yeah.
Is that,
and then you brought up the issue, so that, like the Highlands, that was part of the urban village.
Yes.
They're under
They have a development
different set of
agreement.
rules, so we don't have anything we can do to encourage those development processes,
no, they're locked in.
No, they're locked in.
which is very sad. I mean,
Still
'cause
a
they
few
have bike
developments
lanes.
happening right now, and you still have the opportunities for public input on several, some of the ones that are closer to the Highland Drive. So there's a few left, and, public input is always welcome.
But I think you're coming that we don't have any input. I mean, we agreed to those plans. They're just separate than this. The developer
Correct.
didn't make
Correct.
those
Yeah,
without
those were approved
agreement
by
with
city
ours.
council and-
So we had input to them.
Correct. And then,
The answer was no, and that's not.
as Chantal
Not
said, they
much.
do have the UVDC where there is public, time for public participation and comment.
Bike lanes that are- You would run over the bike. otherwise.
96?
Except the parking lots.
You ever get a chance to go towards the hospital?
No.
And then go into that little development?
Lakeside was just two years ago. There's still several parts of it. Lakeside happened separately from the Highlands. Raleigh just happened 3 years ago,
2 years ago.
2 years ago. So it's still happening.
Right, I just,
All right, are we ready for goal 12? So for 11, I'm going to work on it. I'll figure out, instead of all roadway projects, a way to encompass everything but maintenance. But integrate non-motorized facilities as a part of all roadway projects. Okay. Could do capital, but the problem is if you do just capital, complete streets isn't included in that. And complete streets is where your sidewalks get completed. And so I gotta I've got to fiddle with that one, so, okay. 12, ensure all facilities are accessible to people of all ages and abilities.
I
Do
agree
we
with that goal, but
Yep.
I'm sorry, go right ahead. No,
Oh, I just wanted to ask safely, add safely accessible, safe and accessible.
Oh, I see.
I would think if you just said comply with ADA guidelines, that encompasses everything, including safety.
It does. There are other things, though, that you can do, like putting the landscape buffer between the sidewalk and the cars makes people who are walking on the sidewalk feel a lot safer. And you can do cycle tracks as opposed to cycle lane, or bike lanes that are buffered. So you're right, ADA covers a lot, but there are some additional things that can be done.
But safety is not addressed there, and what the examples you just gave were
Right.
adding safety to the process.
Right. Okay, so I put safe and accessible to all people of all ages and abilities. Anything else? And then I do have the new goal, encourage a connected bicycle network. And I would assume, Chantal, you would also want to encourage a connected pedestrian bike network? Okay. Okay. Yes, I wrote them as separate goals. Okay. I'm listening. Okay.
What about transit, though?
It's next,
Oh,
right there.
I thought I'd seen it, sorry.
Transit network.
So
This
what-
one's, I feel like there should be more goals here, but I looked at it, but as you all know, King County Metro is a bit in flux right now, and I sit on the Transportation Committee for the city, the Transportation Mobility Committee, and there are so many things flying around right now. I feel like this is going to get bigger and bolder later, but for now, this was safe to put in there.
But I'd like to add something I think major to this, because the concept of transit here in Issaquah is right now, as you're mentioning, we are feeling like, I don't know what you want to call it, but we have no say almost. I mean, things are just being taken away and leaving us with nothing. So somehow I want to say Issaquah has the power to take care of themselves if no one else is going to do that. So somehow I want to develop, do we have the ability to take transit in our own hands? If what happens with Metro right now leaves us with nothing but getting out of, a transit center into some other town, and there's no way around our town, and there's no real, connection if you can't get to one point in town, we have no transit. So I somehow look to say, if we're really going to be abandoned, then we want to have something here that says, let's do something to force that issue.
So Monday night at 5:30 on the 16th, the
One way to do
Transportation
that.
Mobility Group is presenting in this room to the Council Infrastructure Committee on that very topic. And oftentimes they allow for public comments. So if you would like to come to that, I just thought I'd give you a heads up since you brought it up.
It's on TV too, right? If they want to watch.
This one, the committee meetings usually aren't, because
Oh,
it's from 5:30 to
okay.
6:30. We're doing it here because the council meeting is right after. So just thought I'd give you a heads up.
One way to do that would be to develop our own DASH system. I don't know if you're familiar with DASH. It's a popular approach in many larger communities. But again, you're getting down to financing, and if we're going to do it, how are we going to pay for it?
Well, that's it. I want to put something in our comp plan that says we can take to task, we can go to FTA, we can fight all that. If there's federal funds that are being paid to this area, and if they're not going to be spent in this area, then there's ways we can deal with that. So there's just, it's not easy, but
No, nothing's
you
easy.
can't say, then we're our own community, and then we stand on our own, and we have to fight to get
Oh,
one of those.
I buy into that completely, Bill, if we can do
I
it.
can't leave us sitting on the bench going, sorry, I can't get anywhere.
So,
And I see where you're going with that. I think, and I've got it written down, but I also want to see what happens Monday night.
The difficulty, again, and I don't want to sound negative, is trade-offs.
and
Is it education or is it transportation? Can we have both, and how do we pay for it?
If you can go to school, you don't have any education.
Exactly,
And-
But that's-
exactly.
That's transit.
And that's what we're facing. We're facing the realities of funding versus need.
Yeah, and so maybe a goal to address that would be maybe ensure maintenance of a robust transit system within Issaquah.
Okay.
And that kind of leaves it open to try to develop it however we can, if we can. If we're stuck with what the county has given us, we're stuck with what the county has given us. If we have the ability to fund something through federal or state dollars, we can utilize that. One other goal I thought of, and I don't know if this is a problem. I haven't been, I walk to Salmon Days, so, but during high volume events, maybe we have increased share of trips made by transit, but also maybe increased use of transit during high volume events. Or encourage.
So, there's, okay.
We do have a shuttle system, and I'm not sure if it's
Right.
underutilized or at capacity, or I'm not sure. I just
Right.
don't have the institutional history. so.
Are you talking about Route 200? Or,
No,
Salmon
shuttles.
oh, the Salmon Day
Like for the
shuttle?
park and
During the
ride and,
high-capacity
yeah.
events,
Right.
what we're doing for shuttles, or whether we're working with Metro to increase runs during those times, or.
No, I think, in fact, I think. I
Just
don't know if
off the
those are
top of
privately
my
funded.
head, one of the things we can think about is how do we utilize the school buses that are idle between 9 o'clock and 2 o'clock? Can we utilize them for a dash-type system as a starter? I don't know if it's possible. It's, again, it's off the top of my head, but
Okay.
I wonder.
So
I
one,
can tell you under the funding models that's going to create a whole lot of algebra for someone.
one of the issues I've been struggling with related to transit. I live in the Highlands. The bus is my primary mode of transportation to work and in between as well, as much as I can. There's more and more people coming to the Highlands. There's no concurrency, I guess, between transit and I think I've mentioned that before. And I know that concurrency cannot deal with operational cost, but I'm still struggling to find a way that there's some kind of a process that can happen between transit and letting more people move into a place. You know, when you start by having buses, then you have to stand, and you have to stand in very weird position because people are pushing you from every direction. You bag on top of your head and whatnot because that's all the space there is. Or 5 buses go in front of you when you're trying to get home, and it takes you, an hour and a half when it should be taking you 20 minutes. There's definitely an issue that goes beyond the Metro funding because the buses have not been cut yet, and yet we are over capacity in a lot of areas. And yet people are still coming, and a lot of people are moving to the Highlands because of it's a transit-dependent area. They're expecting transit. They are being promised transit, and yet there will be no transit for them, or there will be very uncomfortable transit for them. So I'm struggling to see how to address that, but to me, it's a very important issue that needs to be somehow looked at.
So just to be clear, is it not allowing those types of developments unless you're certain that the transit is going to be there?
Well, you can do that because it's already allowed, so.
Well, but in the
Right.
future.
In the future,
Right.
yeah. I mean,
And-
kind
so
of a
that's-
concurrency type thing.
Right,
Like
okay,
you have, if
okay.
you don't have sewer, you cannot have people. If you don't have enough transit capacity, you can't have people. I don't know. It's,
Right, maybe it's you pay into a transit fund that helps the city bring more in for those areas, or,
yeah.
I like the term transit concurrency. I mean, we don't have control over it like we do
Right.
roadway, but it's something to think about, how we could try to get more control over that.
Right. All right, anything else on transit right now? More to come.
One more thing.
Yes.
Sorry. It's so there's the old part of transit, which is having the buses, but there's also one of the things that eases the availability of transit is having roads and the infrastructure that supports that. So not sure what the terms are for that, but having roads that, preferential lights so that buses can turn in, so that they can go
Right.
faster, so that they can cost less money, so that they don't get get cut to the same extent. in a sense.
Right. When we were doing we have transit identified routes, but we haven't gone far enough with that.
Right, there's a
And
few
we-
around on 900, for
Right,
example.
and we talked to Metro about that when we were doing Central Issaquah. That was one of their comments, is we hadn't gone far enough. So that would be part, I would imagine, of the mobility master, the big one, the mobility master plan, not the non-motorized. Yeah, but you're right, it hasn't been addressed enough, and we could put that in here.
Okay.
Okay. Running out of space. Okay.
Sorry, thank you. What about making some kind of a mention of working with other small cities in the area to make sure that our Issaquah's transit is, I don't know, works together with, let's say, Sammamish Transit? Because I feel like that might be missing from one of our
Well, we have regional coordination, which is to collaborate with our neighboring municipalities,
Oh.
King County and other agencies. So we do have.
What I was thinking,
Okay.
sorry.
All right. Okay, finance. Invest strategically in transportation. So part of that is coming through our funding strategies that's being done right now by our consultant, and will be included in the plan, but it's identifying, coming up with a 3-year project and funding plan so that you know where it's coming from.
And my only addition there would be that to make sure that we're investing strategically with long-term cost-saving goals in mind.
Okay.
Because, it's good to have the 3-year plan, but the case in point, when Seattle had the opportunity to put in a subway, 80 years ago, something like that, and it didn't come to fruition, and now we're spending billions on a tunnel to mitigate some of that. So
Yeah.
looking at those investment opportunities as well.
Okay.
One of the key elements of strategy is priorities and timetable. And I would look at it from the standpoint of top priority immediately is safety. Secondly is moving traffic efficiently, removing bottlenecks on Front Street and Issaquah and Hobart Road. That's immediate. That exists right now. But again, looking at strategy, you look at timetables and you look at how do you do it financially and otherwise.
Okay. And you said safety, move traffic, and then the pinch points sort of on Issaquah Hobart Road, and then there was one other one you mentioned. Front. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Last one.
Are we going to prioritize those like that? Or because I would prioritize the 200 bus.
The
right there
non,
too, then.
the non-motorized projects have been prioritized, and yes, that it would be part of the 3-year, I can't think of what it's called, but it's a three-year plan. And I believe that, yes, those are prioritized. That's something that the council has asked
Already
for.
prioritized.
Yes. All right, 15. Collaborate with Issaquah's neighboring municipalities, King County, and other agencies to address regional impacts and issues. So this gets into sharing transit, finding ways to cooperate, road improvements, non-motorized improvements. So, yes.
We include something about, I'm sorry, going back to goal 15, investing strategically in transportation. Would that be where we would also include trying to apply for grants whenever possible? Would that be more of a policy?
It is, it's
or
more of a policy.
Okay.
And I can think of 2 that are not in here. Yeah, one would be a new one and one's an old one. So yes, those fall under policies.
Okay, I was just thinking,
Yeah.
rather than just investment money, but also finding free money.
Okay. We good? That's transportation.
Good job.
Good job.
Lemon juice.
What time is that? All right. We'll get started on this. We'll see what happens.
Did someone just call me? Did someone just call me? No, Kristen.
Yeah, it's
Kristen
still the
show.
Kristen show.
Isn't she awesome?
All right.
Yeah, I'm second fiddle.
You're more than welcome to come.
I'm second fiddle. No, you're doing awesome.
Okay. Land use element. I just shrank about 2 inches. I had to fix that. So this is what was sent to you. So we went through and made the changes to the goals that we talked about last time, put in the policies that are there, or the policies that existed, changed some of them, added a few. I have to warn you, and you may have noticed when you were looking diligently through your packets and taking notes, that I actually added quite a few under natural environment. We started looking at it and realized there were just a lot of things missing. There were too many policies that needed to be addressed, and it needed to be broken up. So that's what happened there. So I'm going to skip the Growth Management Act since we went through that last time, and we can't change that. But first category, natural environment. So maintain and enhance the natural systems and features, which used to be amenities, of the city and surrounding area. Then I added from the potentially negative impact of human activities included but not limited to land development. Am I good? So, yes. Oh, do you have one? I don't want to touch on every single policy. So, is it okay? Did everybody have a chance to look at this? So you have comments ahead of time? So I'll just kind of go A1, A2, and if there are comments, you guys jump in and let me know, okay? All right. A1. Yes.
Regarding A1, just on the second line, I would like to see protection and promotion. So again, a maintenance element and then a forward-looking element.
Hang on, I had to turn on review. Let's see. Let's see. Could you
Second line, protection and promotion.
Look at that. Okay. A2.
Significant trees. That's not capitalized, so that's
Oh.
not defined. So I don't know what a significant tree is.
Oh, actually, it is
It is defined, and yeah.
It's a certain size. It's actually a
Okay,
regulatory
It's
I
size.
thought there
the
was, but-
diameter.
Huh?
Diameter. Yeah, I think it's the diameter of a tree, but yeah.
Right.
But it is defined. Yeah. Okay. A2. A3.
Regarding A3, I don't know if this can be added, but clustering of buildings within developments, I would just add to do it in line with neighborhood character. I think that's just important to make sure that when we're adding these things, that it's at least got the look and feel of the surrounding neighborhood.
Can we do that? I'm thinking Anderson.
Say it again?
The suggestion was to do in line with neighborhood character.
And I think that's more of in the land use code. When we look at each of them that comes in to do a cluster, we make sure that it's, that the densest part isn't on the neighbor's fence line of the lower density. We do that kind of review when we actually look at the plat or the subdivision.
And are you talking densities or are you talking look?
I'm talking look and feel, the Leavenworth
Yeah.
issue where the
Right.
incoming things, I have no problem with putting in high-density apartments, but when they look completely out of place to the rest of the neighborhood, I don't know if that's something that can be incorporated or not as a goal.
What do you think? I'm just thinking Anderson.
Well, maybe we'll kind of do an asterisk and.
Yeah, we'll have to
and
check
try
on
and
that one.
Figure out how to say what you're trying to say without going the other way with the lawsuit that.
Yeah.
So I have a general question.
the comp plan affects the zoning code, and usually when you go through a development, the zoning code is what kind of guides a development. Do we ever look at the zoning code and provide any input on that?
Yes, whenever we amend it, you do.
Oh.
It has to
There's-
go through you.
There's an annual docket of comprehensive plan amendments, and there's an annual document of land use code amendments.
Okay.
So those will come to you as well.
So like we're going through a review of the comp plan right now. Do we ever go through a review of the zoning code?
Not the
Usually
whole
not the whole
thing.
thing, but when amendments come through, they all have to go through you.
Right, so it's just looking at that specific amendment, okay.
Right, and it depends on, and this year, I'm not sure if we're going to get to do any this year because this is keeping us so busy.
Right.
But it's usually something, some error that we found or something that isn't quite clear. You know, let's say that Justin mentioned, we realize that we actually have a plat go through and it's not turning out the way we thought it would. Like Chantal said, even though you think you've written it for every situation, it seems like the second guy in the door, it's like, oh, we didn't think of that. And so then we take the code back to you and try and rewrite it and make it clearer.
Right, okay.
It'd be nice to go through the whole thing though someday, but that's a really nice idea, but not quite yet, but maybe someday.
Right,
we
I'm
can.
just thinking if, if all of us have ideas of like, well, okay, we can want to change the code, when is the opportunity to do that?
Right, and we certainly put them on the docket when there's issues that you guys bring up or our planners bring up or applicants bring up, and we try to get to them in whatever priority order we can do them.
And the
Yeah.
state also this year, so they said you have to update your comp plans this year, but at the same time, you have to do an audit of your land use code this year to make sure it's state compliant. So there's a little ensuring of consistency that's going to happen this year as part of that audit.
And that's kind of what I thought,
Yeah.
is that, these policies is what guide the zoning code. So,
Mm-hmm.
if these change, how do we ensure that the zoning code gets changed so that this is
Right.
reflected?
Right.
I don't know whether this comes under goals or policies, but do we have any standards for exterior development, exterior appearance to make sure that it's compatible with the surroundings and environmentally attractive and so forth? Some of the stuff that's been built lately certainly wouldn't conform with my image of Issaquah, and I think many people's. And I would hate to see the kind of development where you have glass factories that are called offices or residences. Do we have standards that?
Our land use code addresses standards, and it addresses durability and quality and windows and where those can and can't be and how long solid walls can be and where you have to have breaks and all that. But you can't get too subjective. You can't say, well, I like flat roofs and I like pointed roofs. We can't require one or the
I'm talking
other.
about appearance standards, not.
Right.
Right, they're design standards. We have the green sheets in most of the city, and then Central Issaquah has its own standards, and we also have standards for Front Street and Sunset.
Yeah.
And of course, the urban villages have their own design.
I know we have
standards.
it for Old Town, but I wasn't sure about the other areas.
Yep.
We do. Okay. A4. A5. A6. A7. Yes.
I had a question about small scale. What does that mean?
Allow pea patches, that kind of thing that goes onto an empty lot.
Like a hobby farm?
Mm-hmm.
Something's not a huge kind of a deal, but a,
It might be small scale to you, it might not be small scale to me.
And I actually had that same reading. I was thinking small scale as some of the farms you see out on Issaquah, Hobart. Like I thought that was a small scale farm. So I wasn't thinking pea patches and urban farmers. I was thinking small scale agriculture operations.
Okay.
So I don't know if that wording can be clarified at all or if we're encouraging both. That's,
What would happen if you just remove small scale? Because you're permitting them to continue where existing.
Well, I think it describes something that exists out there that's not necessarily under the hobby farm. I mean, most of the farms, like on Issaquah Hobart Road, would be qualified as hobby farms, I think.
Right.
But small scale is maybe something different that may not be covered by that.
Yeah, I'm
Right,
thinking
'cause-
of, I'm not familiar with the hobby farm, but I'm thinking of a single-family house that was taken down for some reason and nothing else goes up, so you put in a small garden, you know, a pea patch kind of garden.
Right, or if you have enough land that you could have, our land use code has certain acreages that you need to have a llama or alpaca or, you know, something like that. And so I think this would allow those kinds of things. I guess instead of agriculture, maybe that is a hobby farm, and agriculture would be, you know, if you have someone come in for 400 chickens for a chicken farm or something, I don't know if we'd be
Horticulture would
in
be-
favor of that.
A greenhouse, for example.
Greenhouses are allowed.
Yeah, that would be horticulture,
Oh, okay.
not animals, it would be plants.
Right, that's true.
But, and taking out small scale doesn't prohibit small scale. It just,
How about neighborhood approach? That way you're reminding the existing neighbors.
Does this cover unincorporated areas?
No, oh no.
Then
just
there
the
would
city
not
limits.
be any,
Right.
right, okay.
Yeah, there's not any possibility.
There's not, yeah, there's not a lot of areas still that,
okay, we'll revisit this one. Okay. A8. A9.
I'm confused about A9. It says continue to prohibit the inappropriate conversion. What are we saying? Because earlier you said that East Cougar Mountain is going to get developed eventually. So what are we exactly saying here? Is to the developer that they can't put in single-family housing on quarter-acre lots anymore?
Sorry, I'm reading it, 1 second.
that's actually a good way to
Yeah.
interpret
Yeah,
that.
that is a good way to interpret that.
I've never read it that way before. This is one of the pieces of growth management is that they were sprawling, there was all this development sprawling past urban places where you could provide water and sewer. And so you'd see these 5-acre tracts being turned into developments that the cities couldn't serve. And so this is kind of,
Yeah, maybe
because
a
our
better
zoning
word-
code, you can't do that anymore.
Maybe it would be continue to discourage inappropriate conversion and low development housing in inappropriate circumstances. I mean, because if we do develop a forest, I mean, it's not going to go all condos.
Right.
Yeah, we'll have to, I'll highlight that one.
That's a
Yeah, the GMA goal says prevent sprawling, low-density development. So we'll have to figure out how to,
I think that was probably, the bright line,
I know,
4 units per acre kind of thing.
I know,
We'll work on this one.
yeah.
I also wonder about the phrase establishment of minimum densities.
Yeah, that's growth management.
Why-
To use
why would
your
we wanna
land
establish
efficiently.
minimum densities.
To use your land efficiently because we're in the urban growth boundary. And so we're supposed to use the land, smart growth and using it efficiently so that we can have a boundary that then it's rural and preserved on the other side.
So if I had 10 acres, for example, and I just wanted to subdivide it into 5 and build 2 nice homes, instead of putting in a cluster of less expensive apartment buildings, that's what that means?
Well, it depends what you're zoned, first of all. Your 10 acres, if your 10 acres is zoned, mixed use, that you're, that putting one house on each of the 5 in the middle of downtown wouldn't be the best use of that land. You wouldn't have to do anything with it. If it's vacant now and you just have one house, you could be like that forever and there's nothing the city could do. But we can try and encourage you, though, when you do develop it, that it would be an efficient use of
It
land.
just sounds like it flies in the face of what we're trying to avoid, terms like carbon emissions and increased traffic and sewage treatment and water supply. I don't know, why restrict a developer in the minimum standards if he wants to go a different route? That's all I'm saying. I don't.
Right, and it's because we're on the urban side of the urban line, that we're
So,
supposed to be using.
I think we're not saying, are you saying that you think that this means that we have to keep low density?
It says an establishment of minimum densities. That's the phrase, I don't.
So your density should be higher within a growth boundary.
Well, I'm just saying, why would we say you have to have 4 instead of 2?
Oh, okay.
When 2's better for the environment?
Not if the two are gonna go move outside the urban growth boundary.
Well, for example, is East Cougar Mountain within the urban plan to where
Right.
you have to build high-density housing, or are the developers going to be allowed to build single-family homes?
Right, in that
That's
case.
the question. That's the question I have.
Right, in that case, because there's so many critical areas, they would probably have to do low density. Just like the Tibbetts Creek Valley is still low density because you couldn't put a lot on there because the land just can't carry it with the wetlands and the stream buffers and all of that. So you've raised a good point that sometimes it's the land that helps us with the density, not the minimum. It's but for example, if you're on Gilman Boulevard and you're taking down whatever it is and you just want to build a house on, 5 acres on Gilman Boulevard, I think people would, there's no constraints, there's no, so we would want you to use the land as efficiently as possible in that case. But it depends on, this is one of those general statements that the zoning code then, piece by piece where you're located, helps us define what we would do.
So I have a question on that. So if you own that 10 acres and he wanted to subdivide it, would he have to subdivide to a 4-lot? I mean, if that was his
It all
zone?
depends where he's
Yeah.
zoned. If he's next to Kelly Ranch, he's zoned 1 acre, 1.2 units per acre because it's constrained, it's wetland, it's stream buffer. But if you're on Gilman Boulevard, you're retail mixed use and you can go all the way up to, I don't even know what the zoning is.
Or 125 feet, but.
Right, and so it all depends where his
Right.
10 acres are.
Right, so it's based on your zoning. If it was zoned a certain thing, you can
Right,
basically.
and we hope that we've zoned places to recognize what kind of land it is for the carrying capacity and the constraints, and so that we're not trying to mess with anybody and make them do a lot more than they would want to do.
So if the zoning defines that, why is that phrase necessary?
Because this is, as Paul said, this is supposed to be the overarching guidelines for the zoning code. This is supposed to help inform the zoning code.
You have maximum standards now, but you don't have minimum standards, am I correct?
Correct, we have, yeah.
Okay, you're proposing, I suspect, to have minimum standards as well. And would you carry it further in terms of redeveloping the Commons, for instance, and the QFC Shopping Center into something like the Lake Hills development, which is multi-use? They tore down all of the
Right.
single-story stores, and they're building a multi-use complex.
Right. So far, the only
That's
place,
That's the way I would interpret the Central Issaquah Plan vision.
right,
But are
exactly.
we talking redevelopment or eventually doing that, because there's a difference?
Right, and the only place now that has minimum standards, minimum floor area ratio is the urban core, which is the central part of the Central Issaquah area, that there is a minimum FAR that we require in the urban core. But the rest of the city, we're not there yet to have minimum development requirements.
So that would be the goal,
To someday have it for the whole city,
yeah.
we may get there.
At least for the Central Issaquah core, the total Issaquah.
Right, we already
is
have
the
it
goal
for
of
that.
Central
We already have it for that.
And if the growth supports it. I mean, if we don't have the growth that will necessitate those
Right.
mixed-use places, they're not going to get built
Right,
until maybe the next comprehensive plan.
That would be redeveloping all of the Rowley one-story office structures along Gilman, which I'm sure he'll do anyway, as the
Right.
market calls for it.
right, he has his development agreement, so he's ready when the market is.
Well, the whole Central Issaquah Plan assumes that there'll be a market for what we're proposing to do.
Right?
Yes.
It just takes some time. Mike?
Question. Excuse me, is this going to run in the face of, and again, I'll use an example in our neck of the woods up in the Plateau, where King County will look at an R6 versus an R4, and they'll allow high-density construction, and I mean high-density construction, even though half of the land is unbuildable. So they're cramming the amount of buildings in an area half the size of what it should normally be in requirements by zoning. And it's happening right now. So I don't know, is this going to have an impact on that kind of an approach?
We have, go ahead.
Oh, you gonna go ahead?
No, go ahead.
And our zoning code now allows partial transfer. If you have critical areas on your land, you're allowed to, it's a sliding scale. You know, if you're 80% critical, you can transfer a little bit of that, and what's left that's developable. Not the whole thing, but part of it. So we already have that kind of a sliding scale in existence. I don't really know how King County's works, if they get a complete one-to-one when they transfer it, but ours, we don't allow the full transfer to the developable part. We only allow a portion of it.
Okay, good.
A10. I feel like I'm playing bingo. A10. All right. All right, I added this one, maintain an overall tree canopy of at least 50% to offset the urban heat island effects and reduce carbon dioxide emissions. This was in our discussion, but we didn't have any goals on trees, which was a couple of years ago a huge council priority.
What is the current canopy?
It depends on which thing you look at. We're either at 47 point something percent or 51%.
Right. I always think
Yeah.
of 51.
Mm-hmm. Well,
But
that's
it's-
both in the comp plan. It depends
Right.
on which method you use.
Right.
The question I have, when you put a 50% tree canopy, how do you say you can measure that throughout the whole city?
Yes.
And then you're looking at who's going to take the brunt of that when lack of tree canopy is also our parks, which are big open grass fields. There's no tree canopy and those types of things. Lots of places don't have tree canopy, but they're still vegetated. And so where that comes down to when, a couple people have some trees, some big old Doug firs that they need to come down and they look like a significant tree because they're big and they'll grow big again very quickly. But who gets stuck with that 50% goal? Because the city's using up a lot of it itself.
Well, we have anytime anybody wants to cut down a tree, they have to come in and get a tree permit, and it's reviewed by the arborist. So it may be too big, it may be able to come down because it's unhealthy, and it may fall over and land on a house. But we may look at it and say, nope, that's a significant tree, it can't come down. So we do have staff that monitors this as we go, and then as developments come in, we look at it there as well.
We also have programs where we replant trees, like we were just down by the dam. We had such fun talking about it all week, by where the dam got removed and the weir was put back in, and there's all the tree planting that, so we do a lot of restoration whenever we can. We usually do them annually to try to put trees back in places that need them, or just to try to keep the canopy going. Because we know it's not all publicly owned tree canopy, that it is also with the residents, and so we try to do our part to keep planting them as well.
So is that if someone were to try to get a tree permit, would they have to have a requirement to plant X amount of trees, or?
It depends on the situation. Sometimes, I think you're allowed, this goes back a few years, I think you're allowed to take down 3 in a year,
But it was
2 in a
I
year.
could be wrong.
It's kind of a cumulative thing that we figured out, and it's been a while. And sometimes, depending on what it is, we ask that either you replant in some other place on your yard, like if it's all of a sudden going under your sidewalk, or it's wrecking your driveway, or if it's, we ask, depending on the case, if you could plant one somewhere else, and if you can't, we understand that too. It depends, so much depends on the lot.
Yeah, right.
And, but we try to keep planting, we have a street tree program. We try to plant them in as many places as we can.
Yes.
I'm wondering how that goal helps us retain our Tree City USA title, and is there any way to somehow mention that we want to continue to remain within that category?
We will make that a policy.
And I just guess we're putting, you said this is a new one and the 50% number, and there should be some science behind that
Oh,
number.
there is science behind it. We have one or two studies that were done that actually we have.
And that'll be in the
And it's-
discussion,
It'll be in the discussion portion.
right above that.
A lot of this was pulled from the discussion. It was just discussion, so it didn't mean as much. So now we're trying to make policies. Okay.
Yeah, the next version you see of this will have all the discussion in it. So little by little, it's getting longer and longer.
Okay. B1. B2. Yes.
In lieu of give special consideration, I suggest identify.
Identify trees in our urban, okay.
And then go down to B. Restoration, restoration including planting of appropriate trees. Is trees a universal term? Does that include shrubs and grasses?
No, it does not.
No,
So we're not concerned about those.
not for the
Not
tree
about-
canopy, no.
Yeah. Not under this section.
For landscaping, yes, but this is just the tree canopy.
B3. B4. Goal C. Added this one as well. Conserve and protect I can't say it. Environmentally
Environmentally.
critical areas from loss or degradation, maintain as open space hazardous areas and significant areas of steep slopes, undeveloped shorelines, and wetlands.
What's the maintain open space hazardous areas?
Is this the OSO problem, essentially?
Steep, that was the first thing, it was steep slopes come to mind, yes. And we also have here coal mine areas.
Yeah, I just think hazardous tends to refer more to man-made things in general. So I don't know if it doesn't sound like we're talking about environment. Hazardous deals with hazardous materials more so. We need a better word there, I think.
Does that work?
Maintain.
Yeah, I would be in favor of keeping the word hazardous just from, I know that in the reports from OSO, they actually identified hazards associated naturally, so I know that is used in those areas.
Can I get a general consensus here? Leave or remove hazardous?
I would like to leave it too. I think isn't it identified in the critical area ordinance? Isn't hazardous
I'd have to look.
defined and?
I'd have to look.
Abandoned coal mine.
Trish, did you get that one to look for? So I think we're leaving it in, but I'm going to also look for the definition in the critical area ordinance. Okay. C1, sorry, I lost my place for a second. C1. Built, no, okay. All right, C2. C3. C4. C5. Ooh, back
Go
up.
back to C4 for a moment.
Yes.
That's, yes. The one with the buffer, yeah, that's it. Allow redevelopment in the buffer where there's a legal non-conforming situation. Can you explain that?
Legal non-conforming, so a house was built within a buffer and then, or not within a buffer. Say a house was built, it's next to the creek. It was built outside of the buffer that existed at that time, but then the regulations changed. and all of a sudden the house is within the buffer, what would be allowed these days.
So this would be grandfathered in?
Right,
something like
grandfathered
that.
in.
Yeah, and that is a legal definition
Okay.
within the GMA.
What about one of the TELUS property, the water tower built in a buffer? Would that be a non-conforming situation as well?
The which one?
One of the TELUS parcels that were approved recently by the council had a water tower built in a buffer, and we wondered why that was the case. Would that be an example of a, I mean, it could have been built anywhere else, but it was allowed to be built in the buffer.
Right, I don't know about that one, do you?
Yeah, and if it was allowed to be built there, then it wouldn't be legally non-conforming. Somehow it was conditioned to be okay
was
there.
conditioned.
And I don't know
Okay.
how,
this
maybe it
would
was
not allow this
mitigated, or the
situation.
buffer, it was buffer averaging or something. I don't know the specifics, but usually legally non-conforming means that something happened after it was built to make the legal status change.
C5? C6? Goal D, also added. Just looking for more work. Improve stormwater quality and management over current conditions.
I don't think we need the over current conditions. I think it just, the improvement is improvement. Improvement's always going to be over current conditions.
It's assumed. Okay. We good with that?
Could live dangerously and say, are there any changes to all of the D policies? Are you gonna-
I was just thinking the same thing.
Thinking of doing them as a group?
Okay.
Living dangerously.
Are we good with the D policies? D3.
Adopt.
That, I believe that's based on the assessment. Isn't that, do you know if
Right,
that's
and
right?
on
It's based on
best
based on the King County assessor data. And where the
And
property
best
is
avail-
valued is it 50%?
And, well, and
What does
there's-
that mean?
Well, there's best available science, and then there's the buffers.
Need water?
But it's actually like a legally defined phrase.
Unreasonably is legally defined phrase?
By the shoreline master, the stormwater code is.
So who decides what unreasonably means?
It would be through the code provisions.
But I don't know if it's King County or the state.
Oh, it's that we have to be consistent with them.
I'll look it up.
What's the matter with it does not limit development?
Well,
We'll look that up, because that's.
yeah, I'll look it up.
Stormwater is kind of tricky.
I've had a lot of experience working on building codes, and phrases like that provide a lot of work for lawyers.
Right, if that was in the code, I would be worried. But since this is sort of the overarching direction, but we'll look that up.
Yeah.
I can ask Carrie about that.
Anything else with D? All right. E, added. Enhance wetlands and the riparian corridors of the city's creeks and streams to improve environmental functions and fish and wildlife habitat. So we've been doing Tibbetts restoration, and whenever developments come in, they're required to restore, and the city's been doing some restoration work. Okay, any questions about the goal or E? Okay. Climate control. This was edited, encourage innovative climate solutions which advance the city towards a carbon neutral community. Any comments or questions on F policies?
I do have a couple. Under F1, I think we should ensure that the targets are objective targets, meaning that we have, hard scientific numbers that we're looking at.
Those are not picked by us. Those are actually mandated by the state.
Okay. And then under.
Oh, wait, I'm wrong. I'm thinking different targets. Okay, objective targets. got my head somewhere else.
The greenhouse gas ones, you mean?
Mhm.
Oh, I see, targets to limit, not the actual
Yeah.
target itself, okay.
Okay.
So what was the word? Objective.
And then trying to read my own writing here. So I will cede to other people on these as I try to figure out what I said.
Okay, anything else on F for a second while he's looking?
F3, where'd 80% come from?
It's the King County goal.
Yeah.
So we aligned with a lot of the jurisdictions in King County to do 80% by 2050.
Where are we at right now?
We can check, that would be, Sustainability Office keeps track of that.
F5, we use the same language we eliminated once before with climate reduction. So we probably
So
should
what-
change that to be, to,
Have you found it? Found it out?
Yes, I did figure out what I was
Okay.
talking about. Under 2A, I would add and incorporate alternative energy or renewable energy. So not only using less energy, but incorporating it in the buildings where possible.
Use less energy to be.
And I don't know, that may be superfluous. I'll cede to others on that. And then under, I would recommend adding a new section G, incorporating waste and water recycling. Also, under D, sorry, go down in order here. Incorporate recycle or reclaimed under D.
Under D?
Yeah. So not just in recycling, but also just reclaiming woods. You're not necessarily just using recycled materials. You can also use reclaimed materials. Encourage that.
That would be a new policy?
No,
Sorry, I'm not quite caught
under
up with-
D, it would just be incorporating recycled or reclaimed materials.
How come I'm not seeing it?
He's on
Me too.
F2,
F2.
F2 Delta.
F2.
Oh, sorry, sorry, F2 Delta.
Okay. Okay. Recycled and reclaimed. Right there?
Yeah.
Was that it?
And then adding a new section G there to incorporate wastewater recycling.
Incorporate wastewater recycling?
Yes. At the building and infrastructure level.
Okay.
I had a question on F2D as in Delta. What does the phrase "and locally produced materials" mean?
Things made in Issaquah? Bricks made in Issaquah?
Can we really do that?
Or within
Or
a 50-mile
within region,
radius,
yeah.
or, within that's kind of it helps with gas, to not do the gas production if you're trucking something in from Mexico, or if you're bringing it in from Canada, or to try to get things as local as possible to help with the carbon
But
emissions.
this is under the heading of encouraging. It's not saying,
Right, it's not saying that you,
Okay.
but that's part of being a lead building, is how close your
Sure.
building materials come from the site.
contractors would do that anyway if it was cheaper.
Yeah, it's cheaper too.
Under F7, I don't know that we'd want to limit it to just the Puget's, to just PSE's Green Power Program, and maybe expand the wording of that to include knowledge and participation in state and federal green and alternative energy programs. Because I know there are things, at PSE's level, and then as well as state and federal levels as well.
Okay. All right, anything else on F?
On F5,
Mm-hmm.
lobby for regional and statewide regs which match the city's climate reduction. Would greenhouse gases reduction be better?
I'm leaving it up to, looking to you.
Well, we all carbon units.
Yeah, we
Or
had
something
that
other than,
carbon.
something other than climate. I just,
Changed it to carbon, because I was
Just, you should use the same thing throughout. so.
carbon emissions or something.
Regarding F and G, I'm wondering why G2 is not in F.
Wait, F and G where?
The G2 should be in F.
I'm confused.
Thing.
Under F?
Yeah. the
Oh,
G-
you're saying that this
G-
policy you think should go under F?
Yes.
Okay. Oh,
Although, and everything
Greenhouse
else
gas
goes with it.
In fact, in looking at these, I had the same thing circled. I had G1, G2, and G3, more relating to climate than general sustainability.
these were, I'll check, these were written by our sustainability, Office of Sustainability. And I'll check with them and see why they were separated and
And
what,
Right, I'll wait until we get into G.
okay.
No, can I say it? So one of I always have concerns about using sustainability as equivalent to environmental policies, which it's not. These are all green policies, they're not sustainable policies. To round up the sustainability, we should add to those the community health policies that are a little further. So for me, if I'm talking about sustainability, I also want the people to be happy as well as the nature. So I want gathering places, I want, the happy environment for me as well as for the.
Right, the three-legged stool.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay.
So those are green policies, basically.
Okay,
The goal is not, but the policies are.
okay. Okay. See what you're saying, okay. Because last time we changed it to include social, economic,
Right,
and
in
environmental.
the goal, but then
Right,
the
in the goal,
policies are
and the
still.
policies, okay. All right, is there anything else on G?
Well, would like to see real sustainability policies
Environmental sustainability policies?
and social.
Okay, oh, so you want,
So
okay.
there's a
Okay.
few later on that could
Okay.
be moved up and.
Okay. All right. Anything else on G?
On G7, I just had a question. How often should the work program be evaluated and presented?
And I'd add, make sure you add strategic in front of work program so it's consistent with the earlier language.
Okay. And Trish, do you know how often the evaluations are supposed to occur?
No, I don't. That's a good question.
Okay. We, again, will talk to OS. Okay. We will find out. Anything else on G? H. This was edited, allow for and accommodate growth in a manner that is fiscally responsive to the community, and enhances and protects the natural environment.
I had one comment on H6, incorporating neighborhood safety in that. So I just added to the end, so maybe neighborhoods, comma, open space, comma, and safety.
Wait,
Oh,
I put it in the wrong place. There we go. Okay. Anything else on H? It's a long one. All right, I.
Oh, wait, that's going too fast.
No, it's okay.
So H7, I was trying to figure out how to say that. I had a policy I was looking at for more into transportation, which is basically to the primary purpose of our arterial street is to move people rather than vehicles. That definitely relates to that one. So just, it goes back to that issue of transportation versus mobility. That's, we're moving, the goal is to move people whichever way works best, not to move vehicles.
Okay. All right. Anything else? I maintain and create a diversity of high-quality places to live, work, shop, and recreate. Any comments on the policies?
Just on I-8, I feel that it should be designate, protect, and promote historic landmarks.
Designate, protect.
Okay. Anything else on I? Healthy communities. Ensure development through plans, policies, and regulations that promote physical, social, and mental well-being so that people can live healthier and more active lives. Most of these policies are new because the goal is new and required by the state. Any thoughts?
I found that non-motorized travel is kind of a curious expression. I mean, are we saying bicycles?
Saying walking and bicycling.
I don't, non-motor, okay. No.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry on that.
That's okay.
I don't see a policy regarding just kind of food, healthy food of some sort.
That one, I think it's going to be, we're addressing it, and I think it's going to be in human services.
Okay.
Right.
This might not be the right portion for it, but there hasn't been any mention of any kind of equine accessibility when we're talking about non-motorized transportation. In the Klahani neighborhood, there are quite a few horse accommodations. Is there any plan for the city of Issaquah to incorporate that as part of a recreational?
I haven't heard of any plans. I can see that it would fit probably more appropriately into, maybe here, but into the parks plan, which is also being updated and is coming soon.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
we,
I've never
how about
heard
if,
of
can we
any
look at it
horse.
then?
Yeah.
I mean, I figure if we're going to have those facilities, it's more likely to go
Well,
in
what I
those
was
areas.
thinking of is, I worked with a different city where we actually had to incorporate crosswalk buttons that were higher so that someone on horseback could hit a crosswalk button to cross the street while on horseback, and maybe not healthy communities, but somewhere in here, if that's something that people in the neighborhoods are participating in, there might be some kind of funding available somewhere down the road to incorporate that into non-motorized travel.
Okay.
Here's the question. Does Issaquah have, within the city limits, is there any restrictions for horses?
I don't know. I'm going to have to, I wrote down, talk to these people, and I don't know.
Right, because I think you can have them, depending on how large your lot is, you can have them on your, you can, I'm not sure how you ride them around. We're not a real horse-friendly, I hate to say that, but I don't think we're real horse-friendly with our trails. I mean, we have mountain bikes, and we have, you know, we try and do as many modes, but I don't recall seeing a horse recently around. But I'll certainly ask the Parks Department if
I mean,
trails are.
I know it's sort of like this one tiny little part of a fringe community, but I was just thinking in terms of incorporating as many, if we're going to say pedestrian and bicycle travel instead of non-motorized, there may be additional non-motorized methods that we might exclude in terms of someday camels, yeah, being available to get grants or to get certain things, not change our entire zoning law, but
Right.
you never know. I don't know. I was awfully surprised the other day when I looked out my window and saw horse riding by, so I thought, oh, well, okay.
Worth looking into. Anything else on J? All right, K. Ooh, not far to go. Support a connected multimodal transportation network as a key to successful land use. Yeah. Any questions or comments on that one policy?
The only thing I would say is that your list there, K1 of trails, sidewalks, everything, the transit's not included. And if you're talking multimodal, I think transit are
Good catch.
a big part of multimodal.
Good catch. Anything else? Pardon me?
Should we include the word roads? K1 at the top, design and create trails, sidewalks.
But that's where the,
This is about healthy communities and getting people out and active. Cars
Correct.
don't do that, but.
Well, the general description of K says a connected multimodal transportation network. Looks like we're just excluding roads.
Yeah, so maybe
Yeah.
rewording of the goal,
Okay.
to state that it's not necessarily for successful land use, but for healthy land use, or, health-oriented land use.
Or connected non-motorized, or.
Okay. All right. Hadn't even seen that. Centers, this is also a new one that we're required to add this year because of our urban center. Focus and promote office housing and retail development in urban centers. Right now, we do have one, almost. Any, excuse me. Any thoughts on this one?
Instead of ensuring other commercial areas do not detract, I would almost say ensure that other commercial areas enhance, because you don't necessarily want it to be, well, are they, if you've got a neat shop, yes, it's going to detract from some bread sales at Target, but is it enhancing the overall commercial atmosphere?
Okay. You all okay with that?
So I'm trying to understand what this means, though. So does that mean that the priority for commercial development will be the urban center?
Yeah.
And that all of the city's resources in terms of economic development, economic vitality type thing will be only prioritizing that area? So
Well,
other commercial areas in the cities will get less attention?
I wouldn't say all of the resources, because one of the council's goals and targets this year is to now look at Old Town again
Right.
and see what we can do there to help improve redevelopment and attractions to that area, so.
And I think what this is saying too is that because a lot of the land that's farther from the major streets is cheaper, and so we often get applicants that come in for a parcel that's kind of way off the beaten trail, and they want us to go through all these different changes to make it a automotive something or a something, and we say, you're way out in the middle of nowhere. That would be perfect in the urban center, even though the land's probably a little more expensive. And so we're trying to make sure that our guidance is not to do all these strange contortions on the outlying areas where the land is cheaper and put all the density to put the density where it's supposed to go, where we've planned for it to go. And just keep that in mind when applicants keep trying to get the rules changed around the perimeter.
And that makes a lot of sense. I just didn't read it that way, and I'm looking like it would be detracting from Front Street or from the
Oh,
okay.
Grand Ridge, or, you know,
Right.
those other areas that were previously designated as important
Right,
commercial
right.
areas.
Yeah, no, I don't think we would want to take anything away from those. It would be those, you know, those other small,
Right,
new
no,
kind of
that
things.
certainly
Right,
makes the strip malls, yeah.
right,
Right.
right, that kind of thing.
M,
And so how did you end up?
Hmm?
Enhance, okay.
new section, resource lands. Maintain opportunities for agricultural and resource land uses or activities. Encourage compatible uses adjacent to resource lands which support the use of the resource and minimize conflicts among uses.
Yeah, I had a couple questions regarding, I mean, is this a new requirement of the GMA or?
It's an old requirement of GMA.
Okay, so we're just coming up to code then, because it's, so specifically with regard to M4 and M6, are those GMA mandated, or, because I don't know that, you know, I feel that,
Mineral
First-
resources.
Yeah, mineral resource
That's
is,
still a
and that
protected-
had to do with Lakeside, when we annexed Lakeside too. That, we had to ensure that they could remain as a mineral resource land. Yeah.
okay.
And then M6. I don't know that it's
Yeah.
state required.
Yeah, and my, like, I like the best practices concept, but I feel M6 could be a little stronger, you know, almost to the point of discouraging mineral extraction through requirement of zero net impact on any new mineral extraction projects, or something to that effect, so that we're really protecting lands. I mean, you know, everyone knows the horror stories from Montana where you have mineral extraction that's just decimated the land, and I want to kind of make sure that any mineral extraction going on leaves the land the same or better than it was before.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Okay. Okay. Those aren't the words. I'm going to work on it. But-
So you're gonna do a 180 on that? Instead of required, you're gonna say discouraged?
No, that's saying require best practices.
Mineral extraction and processing operations and agricultural practices. So it's mineral extraction is one action, processing operations is another action, agricultural practices. And we're requiring all those to implement best practice management.
It almost sounds like you're requiring mineral extraction. But if you read the whole sentence, require best management practices.
If it's going to happen, make sure that they have as few impacts as possible.
So I guess the reality is we need to keep this in here. I guess the reality is how much, you know, logging and mineral extraction are we gonna have within the city limits? You know, I mean, they don't allow it on the ridge, you know, miles from here, that they've fought to buy that land because it wouldn't allow some logging there. So, you know, when you get to the goal, minimize conflict amongst users, I mean, it just seems like, it sounds like something you have to say, but
Well, and if you do annex any properties into the city, you can't all of a sudden say you can't do that in the city. So you have to still allow it for those people.
Right, for those uses.
Right.
Okay, Kristen, back to one quickly, use the term in there again, small-scale agricultural uses. And again, that may beg the question of
On
the
which-
definition.
Oh, M1.
Okay. We only go to O. We're almost there. Regional coordination and annexation policies. Work with local and regional agencies and all affected parties during the annexation process. Any thoughts on those?
I have a question on number 101.
Oh, 01?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. 01, the last sentence starting with however.
Okay.
However, if the development commences prior to annexation, the interlocal shall require that the development agreement permit approval for such should be done by the city. Is this suggesting that if somebody's going to develop a piece of property in a PAA, they have to consider, well, wait a minute, this might be annexed to the city of Issaquah, and therefore I have to develop my property per the Issaquah city codes?
No,
Such?
this is if the annexation process has started. Am I right or wrong?
This is
I
like
think I'm
when
right.
Krispy Kreme and Fred Meyer and Home Depot came in, and the project was approved, but the only thing that had started being built was Krispy Kreme. And so we did an interlocal with King County that the city would keep processing the permit that King County had already approved. And so, but we at least got to do it with our overseeing and we couldn't change the rules
Okay.
that they were approved under.
Because the legal concept doctrine of vesting.
Right,
you
but
pull
we
the-
were
you
able
pull
to do the
permit
inspections
codes in
and,
place at the time you build to.
right,
Okay.
but we were able to
just
do
want
the
to do the
inspections.
inspections,
Right,
because
that's why we like
permits
it.
cost a lot of money.
They do.
Understandable. Okay.
Very last goal, annex the city's potential annexation areas to ensure compatibility with city development regulations and to provide for public services, public facilities, and concurrent transportation facilities at the city's level of service. Believe it or not, that was cut down from the last time we were here.
It is.
Regarding 04, we talk about response due to health emergencies or threat to the aquifer. Do we want to maybe expand that as threat to city resources generally? You know, I don't know what other things might come up if we're talking maybe threats to energy, threats to water, sewer, things like that may come into play as well.
Okay. We good with that?
I have a question on the last sentence in 03.
Okay.
Transportation deficiencies should be addressed within 6 years.
That's a state law.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Really doesn't need to be there.
And I just have one other small correction. Justin, not Jason.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've been doing that all night.
No worries.
I apologize.
I actually respond to any J name.
That's good to know.
I apologize. Thank you. Okay. Any other thoughts on O? You guys did a fabulous job. Thank you.
Did.
Thank you.
This is the longest we've gone in a long time.
And I just want to thank anyone in the studio audience that stuck with us through that.
Yes, this is good. And so the next time you see this, the discussions will be put in, and maybe even some of the implementations.
And maps.
And, oh, maps, that'll be exciting. No, it will, I like that. No, I meant that. Anything else? Anything else?
I'm done.
You're done, okay.
What's the schedule?
That's right. In the next meeting is, I think, capital facilities again, and public utilities and services. It's a really long title. Services, public services and utilities, whatever. Jason will be back to give you the next round of those 2 chapters.
In 2 weeks?
2 elements.
Or into
well,
July?
It's whatever the next meeting is. Oh, we don't have that on here anymore.
Don't have it on the cover sheet, so that's what I'm asking.
These new ways. I'd have to see, is this one we skipped the week?
July 8th?
Should be the 26th if it's scheduled.
July 26th, you're right.
July 26th?
June.
June, I'm sorry, June 26th. Oh, and then we're into July, yeah, June 26th. Do we know at all who might not be here, June? You're not going to be here, okay. No, Chantal, June, okay.
Any other questions, comments for the good of the order before we adjourn? Adjourned at 9:08.
Okay,
Thank you all for being
good
patient. and
job,
getting
you guys
through
were
that.
good, and you were prepared, they were prepared, and it was like,